speaking. Clearly, I was
a slow walk and wave, no doubt.
I was speaking to Chris LaCivita a little earlier tonight, the
senior advisor
former president to the former president. And he says that, they're looking past Nikki Haley. They're looking to Joe Biden, and they think that tonight, they said.
Based on that, do you expect his remarks to be more about Biden and less about Haley?
Yeah, I do. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on Joe Biden. I mean, they are looking to the general election, and again, there has never been a presidential contender who has won Iowa and New Hampshire and not gone on to secure the nomination, something they emphasize repeatedly. So to them, he's won, he's going to be the nominee, it's inevitable, let's focus on the gen.
And not only is there a slow walk and a wave, but now there's the assemblage of family members, surrogates, and others who traveled the state for the former president. So it sounded to me that Nikki Haley tonight was trying to get the former president's attention.
Yep.
Attack me, engage me.
Right.
Well, one of the things you can do in politics to sort of bury that is not engage.
Is ignore.
Look beyond that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Insult by showing or demonstrating your indifference. Not the easiest thing or the instinctive thing for former President Trump to do. It will be interesting to see on what side of that ratio he falls in his remarks this evening.
Yeah, sometimes he can't help himself. I think he's just, he sees the target, he goes for it. But he has been respectively more disciplined than previous cycles. This is his third New Hampshire primary, right? And actually the first in history to win 3 New Hampshire primaries, 2016, 2020, and now 2024. But I
believe he's tied with Richard Nixon in that category.
That's right, Richard Nixon. Excuse me. Yes, of course. But again, they are more disciplined. They have the more ground game and organization. They are really looking ahead to the general election.
Finn, I'm going to interrupt you now because he is at the microphone. The former president of the United States, Donald Trump, the projected winner of the New Hampshire Republican primary.
Well, I want to thank everybody. This is a fantastic state. This is a great, great state. We won New Hampshire 3 times now. Three. We win it every time. We win the primary, we win the generals, we've won it, and it's a very, very special place to me. It's very important. If you remember, in 2016, we came here and we needed that win, and we won by 21 points, and it was great. And today, I have to tell you, it was very interesting because I said, wow, what a great victory. But then somebody ran up to the stage all dressed up nicely when it was at 7. But now I just walked up and it's at 14. But she ran up when it was 7. And, we have to do what's good for our party. And she was up and I said, wow, she's doing like a speech like she won. She didn't win, she lost. And last week we had a little bit of a problem, and if you remember, Ron was very upset because she ran up and she pretended she won Iowa. And I looked around, I said, didn't she come in 3rd? Yeah, she came in 3rd. And then I looked at the polls. She was talking about most winnability, who's going to win, and I had one put up. I don't know if you see it, but I have one put up. We've won almost every single poll in the last 3 months against crooked Joe Biden, almost every poll. And she doesn't win those polls. And she doesn't win those. This is not your typical victory speech, but let's not have somebody take a victory when she had a very bad night. She had a very bad night. And you have the now very unpopular governor of this state. This guy, he's got to be on something. I've never seen anybody with energy. He's like hopscotch. And, I'm watching this guy, and 2 weeks ago he said, we're going to win in the landslide, we're going to win. About 3 days ago he started saying, well, we want to do well. That's a big difference. But I walked out just now, we're 14 points up, and I don't know what it's going to be. But when she was up here, it was like 6 or 7. And, with like 7% of the vote counted. Now, let me just tell you, we had an unbelievable week last week in Iowa. We set a record. It was the best in the history of the caucus, in the history. And I remember I sort of had the same feeling. I'm up and I'm watching, And I said, she's taking a victory lap. And we beat her so badly, but Ron beat her also. You know, Ron came in second and he left. She came in third and she's still hanging around. The other thing, she only got 25% of the Republican votes. I don't know if you saw that. Tremendous numbers of independents came out because in this state, because you have a governor that doesn't frankly know what the hell he's doing in this state, in the Republican primary, they accept Democrats to vote. In fact, I think they had 4,000 Democrats before October 6th. They already voted. Now, they're only voting because they want to make me look as bad as possible. Because if you remember, we won in 2016. And if you really remember, and if you want to play it straight, we also won in 2020. By more. And we did much better in 2020 than we did in 2016. But as they said, we lost by a whisker, just by a whisker. No. But we can't let that happen. You know, you have to have people that speak up. I said, I can go up and I can say to everybody, oh, thank you for the victory. It's wonderful. Or I can go up and say, who the hell was the imposter that went up on the stage before and like claimed a victory? She did very poorly, actually. She had to win. The governor said, she's going to win, she's going to win, she's going to win. Then she failed badly. Now, I have here, if he promises to do it in a minute or less, but the only person more angry than, let's say me, but I don't get too angry, I get even. The only person, because he was there, and he did fantastically well, by the way, and then he endorsed me. And we don't have to talk about Tim Scott, who, by the way, just got engaged, we have to tell you. And that's more important than all of this stuff. But a man that got to know her very well is Vivek. I said, Vivek, go up and say a few words about it. He has to do it in 1 minute or less, and then we're going to just say, we had one hell of a night tonight. And one other thing, before Vivek comes, do you see that poll? We're going to put it up. We have beaten Biden. You could almost say, who can't? Who the hell can't? The man can't put two sentences together. He can't find the stairs off a stage. Who can't? But Vivek, 1 minute or less. Go do it, Vivek.
What we saw tonight is America first defeating America last. That's what we saw tonight. If you want America last, you can go to Joe Biden. You got another candidate still apparently in the Republican primary. Cut your Social Security to fork over more money to Ukraine so some kleptocrat can buy a bigger house. Go to Nikki Haley. But you know who delivered a double-digit victory tonight? It is a double-digit victory as of right now, is this man, Donald J. Trump, the leader of America First. And that means something. Now, USA and Donald Trump, America First. Now, I got 30 seconds left. I want to make this point here, okay? We got to say this right. What we see right now with her continuing in this race is the ugly underbelly of American politics, where the mega donors are trying to do one thing when we, the people, say another. And it's up to us, we, the people, to at long last say, hell no. We, the people, create a government that is accountable to us. And we, the people, have said tonight, we want, again, as we did in Iowa, Donald J. Trump. And so you want to actually speak truth. That's the truth tonight. And the only thing they're rooting for is an ugly thing that we don't want to see happen. That's what these people are rooting for, is playing to say long enough so the Reid Hoffmans and the ugly Democratic George Soros Jr.'s who are funding the lawsuits against Trump can prop up their puppet. We say no to that vision. I say the general election begins tonight, and this man will win it in a landslide. God bless you, Donald J. Trump. Vote Trump, USA.
Very nice. Wasn't that nice? So this was a great evening, and I want to thank everybody in the audience, and I want to thank the people that are standing behind me. You know, I think we called it right. Immigration's a big deal, a very big deal. We have millions and millions of people flowing into our country illegally. We have no idea who the hell they are. They come from prisons and they come from mental institutions, and it's just killing our country. And I'm talking about millions and millions and millions. They are drug dealers. They're everybody. And they come in just like walking right through. There's nobody to check, and there's nobody to vet. And we have a man with us tonight, Tom Homan, who is central casting. He's central casting. And I'd like you to say a few words about
Remarks of the victor here in New Hampshire's Republican primary, former President Trump, at his watch party in Nashua, New Hampshire. And if you listen to Vivek Ramaswamy very carefully, apparently competition is the dark underbelly of American presidential politics. To discuss that and much more, I want to bring in Washington Post national political reporters Maeve Reston and Sabrina Rodriguez. It's great to have you both. Maeve, diagram, if you can, what we heard from the former president about tonight. We thought he might talk more about Biden, but he seemed very focused on Nikki Haley.
He did. And I think that, what's so interesting there is that the argument that he's making is that the only reason that she came even somewhat close to him here was because of that participation of independents. And both he and Ramaswamy were pointing out that she did not do as well among Republicans. And that was a constant refrain that I was hearing here, like shadowing door knockers in those last few days. That argument that she was going to have to rely on Democrats who changed it to independents to vote here was something that really pierced through, I think, to a lot of GOP voters in those final days, and was something that became a real problem for her. But it's all his grievances. It's the same speech we've been hearing, and clearly they're trying to pivot to the general election, but he still wants to talk about the 2020 election, et cetera.
And Sabrina, to be clear, a couple of things. First of all, the deadline to switch, if you were going to switch, was October 6th. There was no last minute rushing to change registrations. Not only that, undeclared is a status that is respected and revered in New Hampshire. It is perfectly permissible. And secondarily, he made references to 2016 and 2020 just for everyone's benefit. He lost to Hillary Clinton here by about 3,000 votes in 2016, lost to Joe Biden in 2020 in New Hampshire in the general election by 60,000 votes. A big swing from 2016 to 2020 in this state, which Republicans know and are worried about. Your thoughts about what we've seen so far tonight?
Well, seeing the 2016 and 2020 results you mentioned here, that's been part of Nikki Haley's whole pitch in this state. And Governor Chris Sununu, on the campaign trail for her, that's something that he's brought up consistently, saying, he says we want winners, we don't want losers. That's something we've heard every day on the campaign trail. And really, that's kind of part of the message that we see from her, saying, we want to expand the electorate, especially in a state like New Hampshire with so many independent voters. We can do that in this campaign. And that's the argument they've been making, where the 2022 red wave didn't come to fruition. Republicans have seen consistent losses in places that they were so confident they'd be winning. And that's really part of the message that we're seeing from Haley.
And Sabrina, something I heard from Republicans here is, a Republican running in a federal race in New Hampshire since 2016 hasn't won. They're 0 for 11. Mm-hmm. And they attribute at least part of that to the Trump overhang here in New Hampshire. Did you hear something to that effect as well?
Absolutely. When you're talking to, consistent Republican voters in the state, you still hear that, strong Trump base that's very supportive of him and wants to see him win. But it's really those more moderate voters that have a strong presence in this state that are saying, we recognize that he's too extreme. We don't like the rhetoric. We don't want to see this going forward. We think that, a lot of them pivot to the general election the same way Trump did tonight, but in a different way. And they pivot to the general election saying, well, Haley would have a better chance of beating Biden.
Maybe I want to ask you about something, because Trump, if he knows anything, and he knows many things, but he knows a great deal about branding and owning a moment. He seemed a little angry that Nikki Haley tried to own the moment and tried to create her own brand. That's what you do in politics. If anyone knows that well, it's former President Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she has really shown herself to be such an agile competitor in this. The way that she came out so early tonight, knowing that those results were probably going to look better for her at that moment than they do later in the night.
Yeah, exactly.
As you were pointing out, she has really known how to sort of shape her narrative here, and that's, you know, part of what has made her a really good candidate throughout the year, and it helped her rise here. I do think, though, that, you know, to your point, that this should be a little bit of a wake-up call to Donald Trump here in New Hampshire. Like, the fact that so many voters did come out, and we saw this huge turnout to essentially make a protest vote against Donald Trump. Maybe it wasn't about that enthusiasm for Nikki Haley as much, but I mean, that should be a little bit of a wake-up call for them about the amount of work that they're going to have to do in some of these other states in the general election.
And Sabrina, yes, you can, and it's really important to do the delegate math and the base party math in a nomination fight. You have to take care of that business. But then you have to be able to think more broadly. And to Maeve's point, yes, they've done that first part, and they seem to be drilled down on that, but there's a whole other conversation that some of the results here tonight might suggest will be difficult for them come that general election contest.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of what we've heard from Trump and this politics of grievance that, you know, he had in 2016, he definitely built on even further in 2020, and now in this campaign, I mean, there's no speech that doesn't start and end with him making a mention of immigration or making a mention of how horrible things are in the country. And I think as you head towards a general election, you're going to have to pivot in some sense to be able to say, we want to appeal to more moderate voters, or we want to appeal to that Republican who now might be anti-Trump and is weighing, you know, a third-party bid, because it's not just Trump versus Biden. It's a question of people deciding whether to stay home, or people deciding RFK Jr. or another candidate in this race.
And Maeve, Finn and I were talking, Finn Gomez and I, before the former president came out. Would he sort of ignore Nikki Haley and just talk about Biden? Couldn't do that. She's not going away.
No.
So we're going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to get real or anything, but we're going to have a conversation in South Carolina.
Absolutely. And you saw, you know, her campaign manager today with that memo coming out and saying, we're in this for the long haul. The advisors to her super PAC pointing out, you know, that independents can vote not just in Michigan, but a number of those Super Tuesday states. I think the conversation that was going on with Nikki Haley's donors leading up to this moment was, how wide a margin could she lose by here to keep on fighting, you know, into South Carolina? And I think that, you know, the other big question for her, because Nevada is such a non-factor this year, is how does she come out of this with a big enough burst of momentum to get those donations from Ken Griffin and the others who have been holding off? Do they really see a path for her at this point? And how do you sustain that for a month? I mean, that's very hard. And I mean, lastly, it's if things continue to look the way that they do in South Carolina, do you want to be humiliated in your home state as you're thinking ahead potentially to 2028? That's going to be a tough call if the poll numbers stay steady.
As Robert Costa said here a few moments ago, how much pain can you endure? That's a political question that many have to face. Nikki Haley will begin to face it if she hasn't already. Maeve Reston, Sabrina Rodriguez of the Washington Post, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
We will check back with our Anthony Salvato at the CBS News Data Desk next. You are quite happily streaming America Decides.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on